Hello and most welcome to 1574 of the series. We will today continue with Jesus, the holder of the 7 stars in his right hand by San Lee, San Francisco, California. And we are at page 361. The very bottom, the last paragraph. True everlasting life. And you can push that to the bottom here, since I'm standing as far as you can. See here, a bit more if it's possible. I think somewhere there it needs to be the last, as far down as possible. I hope it's okay. And I'll just make a short retake of what we went through last time. We were looking at the opposition, so to speak, of nudedness and clothedness, and how Jesus got his attires from opposition with Flavius Caesar, the son of Domitian, who is stark naked, Gymnos, and Jesus with imatia lefka, white garments. And this also became a sort of metaphor for true richness, which is beyond the very presence of clothing, oddly enough, and fair enough, I would say, became the pointers to an otherworldly wealth with Jesus. Whereas the nudity of Flavius Caesar, the son of Domitian, was the pointer to divus and deos, the epithets given to him and his father in conjunction. And how Jesus can be put in connection with the economic system and participating in religious activity can metaphorically or even truly be the participation in Jesus' life, the adoration of Jesus. I would say that makes a lot of sense. We've been looking how, almost the opposite, but how commerce was infused with what we today would maybe try to discern or cut off, make a distance between what we call religious and what is commercial, of the flesh, secular. It's wholesome to bring the two sides together, and it doesn't undermine the singularity in the spirit and in the body. In the same way as the commercial guilds did not take away their capability of making commerce because they also were religious. On the contrary, they were strengthening each other. Once more, we see deconstruction or opening up as a way out of that one-sidedness that makes everything so limited. In the last episode, we went into a review of Paul Feyerabend's last book, The Conquest of Abundance, and there it is depicted the modern tendency to only use universals and abstractions in the idea that that is the only way of reaching both the particular and the whole. So to speak, that is the way to go about to understand the world. First, cutting everything into pieces, creating, so to speak, an unnatural state of isolation that never existed in the universe. And then abstractly, in your head, in the head, transcendentally, metaphysically, putting them together to make an artificial whole. One could call that the machine model because it's also used by Jacques Monod, François Jacob, Bernard, Canguilhem, etc. Taking away life, everything that sticks out, eradicating peculiarities like goal, and you end up with a streamlined, I would say chlorinized worldview, and the very void of everything pertinent to human beings is actually taken as a proof of its value. Which is incredibly clear in Jacques Monod, who's horribly reductionistic, claiming that he should not even exist. That everything that is subjective with him should be erased, so he could be a sort of a relaying element for the true objective out there, the true world out there. It is only that that true world is a construction. We know that. Was made to be a construction in order to serve the purpose of technology. in order to make it possible for us to have that enormous development that we had during the Industrial Revolution. And oddly enough, I think also this chloranization or universalization have, in some sense, made more just societies. I give it. At a horrible cost, of course, with the revolutions and murders, but it made it possible. And in my belief, we can have both as long as we realize that the mechanical model is with an outside purpose. If we don't forget that, we can still use it. But if we forget it and sort of reify it to be reality itself, it will go back with a vengeance on you. That will cost. And in these last 3-4 articles, we've been seeing how the machine model, which is ever present, has been connected to the Bible. Something living is coming under the claws of machination, if you want, with interesting results. And here we can clearly see how the cogs of the technological knowledge is working. I continue my read after this introduction. 432. True everlasting life. John perceived that his call for the Laodiceans to participate in Jesus's commerce by not participating in imperial commerce would cause various problems, especially financial and social difficulties that could possibly lead to more severe oppression, including death. It is therefore possible that in order to encourage his audience to keep their faith in God and Jesus, even unto death, John depicted Jesus as the holder of the 7 stars, which represent the domain of the blessed dead who received immortality. As observed previously, such a depiction of Jesus stands in stark contrast to the deified Son of Domitian, who is surrounded by the 7 stars in the DCCT. The intended audience might have perceived such a contrast to indicate that the power of Jesus, which extends to both the terrestrial and celestial realms, is much greater than that of the deified Son of Domitian, who represents the imperial authority. Significantly, Jesus in Revelation appears as possessing extraordinary celestial powers, and one of them is to grant eternal life to his followers. For example, Jesus has an authority to grant his believers to eat of the tree of life, which represents the source of eternal life. In verse 10, Jesus is also depicted as having the power to give the crown of life to his faithful believers. Here the expression, the crown of life, means that the crown consists of life, that true and lasting life with God, that is the reward of all God's people. In addition, Jesus appears to have the power to erase one's name from the book of life, indicating that Jesus, as the author of life, has the power to choose to whom he would grant eternal life. Finally, the identification of Jesus as possessing the keys of death and of Hades. in Revelation 1:18 further demonstrates that the power of Jesus even reaches down to the deepest, darkest parts of the universe, the underworld, implying that Jesus has the power to release others from death. As seen in Revelation, Jesus, the holder of the 7 stars in his right hand, is both the eternal being and the controller of eternal life. John utilized such powerful descriptions of Jesus, encouraging the Christians of Asia Minor to faithfully endure the escalated tensions that could possibly lead them to death. For those who died for their loyalty to God and Jesus will be resurrected and receive true wealth that lasts forever and ever. Five, conclusion. This article has scrutinized the depiction of Jesus as the holder of the 7 stars in Revelation 1:16 in light of numismatic evidence. And the larger context of Revelation. Although the immediate context interprets the depiction in the mentioned verse as Jesus is exercising his sovereignty over the 7 angels, over the 7 churches. My approach has demonstrated that a secondary but not mutually exclusive interpretation is possible. Is also possible. According to this reading, the image of Jesus as the holder of the 7 stars in his right hand functions as a literary device that subverts the imperial message embedded in Dius Caesar's coin types. By making a stark contrast between the gloriously dressed Jesus who holds the 7 stars in his right hand and the shamefully naked son of Domitian who resides within the 7 stars. John places Jesus above and beyond the imperial power, insinuating that Jesus is the ruler par excellence, whose sovereignty extends to both the terrestrial and celestial realms. In doing so, John urges the intended audience to abandon their engagement with trade associations who are deeply connected to the imperial cults. In addition, John encouraged them to endure the accompanying oppression for their Christian faith, even if it costs their lives. Since, according to John, Jesus is the possessor and giver of genuine wealth and eternal life. He will grant richness and life that lasts forever and ever to those who remain faithful to him unto death. We reached the end of Sang-Wan Lee's splendid article. And we will take a sort of wholesome take on the whole article. First, looking into the subject from a numismatic direction is very interesting in itself. It's a tangible object, you can touch it, and it is the very, so to speak, objectivization of two-sidedness. It has two sides, and that defies all modern logic, which says you can only have life or death. You can only have truth or falsehood. The monosemic, one-eyed, stiff-necked take on reality. Which sort of blocks out a wider, deeper understanding of reality. A reality which encompasses so much more than the mechanistic viewpoint, with this incredulous shallowness, one-sidedness, and obliterating abstractions. The broadening is in the coin. It's in the beautiful depiction. We see only one side, with the infant emperor's son Caesar Flavius, with stars as hands, or surrounded by stars in the starry heavens. You can compare the coin to a magnifying glass that in a way magnifies the littleness of the mechanistic model into become absolute infinity and eternity. That is one of the promises of Jesus. And that has been impossible because of the monosemic take. The one-sidedness puts either or in action. And then we have to choose. And today we often choose life with a little L. Life with the exclusion of eternal life. That life is biological in the Kangelhamian Bernardian way. It has a best before date, and the only thing we can hope to is to preserve that biological life as long as humanly possible, and then maybe something else will evolve. It's a stark price to pay for the either-or situation here. Either-or makes life as truly being life disappear. It becomes into nothing. Because without death, there is no eternity. Today we become fearful of death because of this technological division. By dividing it thus, we can only try to keep our corporal body as long as possible, supported by nutrition, medication, rest, and so forth. Because the mechanistic way of thinking makes no room whatsoever for both, which is eternity. It's a bit Paradise Lost. But we don't know what we have lost. We are forgetful that people in these days, and much later, I would say, well into the Renaissance, had this eternity in their hands, just like Caesar Flavius has the stars in his hands, or as hands. Contradictions that doesn't make sense today are the most important. Our way of reasoning preemptively excludes them. They are forbidden alternatives. Clothed and non-clothed, death and life signify something bad for most people, where it used to be the absolute telos of everything. And Jesus in this depiction is life, that thing that Cangelhem, especially Jacques Monod and his compatriot Jacob disliked so highly. Instead, they created artificial telos only in the text, unbeknownst to themselves. Something that they could not understand. Of course, it is a definite oversimplification to say this is the rule of the excluded middle. It's much more than that. But maybe it's a hint. The rule of the excluded middle, LEM, is a product of this or some sort of offspring. as long as you only say that and don't make too much of it, that could be understandable. And all this, bringing the two sides together, makes it possible for Jesus to grant the authority to his believers to eat of the tree of life again, which represents the source of eternal life on page 316. But Jesus is also depicted as having the power to give the crown of life to his faithful believers. And how this later has been frowned upon, and well, it's not frowned upon, no one is in opposition to it, but it doesn't fit the current thinking. It doesn't have any room in the current thinking. And either or thinking, simplified, doesn't allow for eternal life, doesn't allow for the body and soul to be one and different. It doesn't allow for life. It's a literary device, writes Sang-Wan Lee, that subverts the imperial message embedded in the Deus Caesar coin types. I would say it's no subversion, it's already there. Opposition, in a very true way, depicts what is possible in a very strong and direct way. And in an odd way, the coin encourages people to take a stride for Christianity, to make Christianity stronger. Does actually, in my own case, remind me of baby Jesus of Prague. Also highly decorated, ornamented, surrounded by golden goods and jewelry like the stars, as you see here. And baby Jesus is also a pulp. Yeah, maybe some. Surrounded by gold, beams of gold, and the crown of life shining like the stars. Jewelry, emeraldry, silver, gold, platinum, for certain, the most expensive metal. All these are strengthening, showing that You can conquer death by accepting it. But you lose your life if you shy away from it. You define life as being no death, and you define God as being the opposition of absence of God. Something that is depicted in negative theology. And this, indeed, of modern days is maybe some sort of variety of negative theology. It's God becomes just like the thing, the atom that the son of Niels Bohr criticized for his doctorates to overuse. There's no such things as existence. This is so much more than existence. It is endless. It's much greater. And since it's in physics as well, we understand taking all in makes matter, the physikos, so much more than the physikos of the Ionian Micro-Asia coast could ever understood. Because they constantly tried to make it smaller, atomize it, abstract it, not realizing in this abstraction, this coinage, that each coin still had two sides. Two sides to take care of and take notice of. That concludes my summary. Maybe some comment from Kalle here.
Let me go back.
Speak as directly to the microphone as you can.
Yes. So the conclusion of Lee was that John places Jesus above and beyond the imperial power, insinuating that Jesus is the ruler par excellence whose sovereignty extends to both the terrestrial and celestial realms. While, so to say, Domitian's child has less power. This was one of the, let me see, where did he say this? But say so, let me do the point image, I think it's easiest. So then, so according to Lee, Jesus has power both over earth and heavens. But I would say also here, the shadow Domitian actually has power over the sea, for the first. The stars as sea creatures, sea stars.
Oh, yeah.
And then the earth and the stars also are stars. So you have actually there 3 domains. So to argue against Lee, Jesus, the son of Domitian is more powerful than Jesus. So we cannot agree with Lee, I think. I think his conclusion about this is limited. He cannot see the hands more than hands. He doesn't even comment on them. We have concluded that these hands are also stars.
Yes.
And like jets, like in rocket jets, you see that the child is the act of moving towards the stars. I think that is the point. So this is the movement, the represent of the movement. So I think this is a very good image. So I wouldn't say absolutely not that the child of Domitian is represented as with less power than Jesus.
No.
No. And I could also say that I could actually take up this quotation since this is so important. Revelation, let me take the context of Revelation chapter 1. Revelation chapter 1, let's say that. So we have been discussing verse 16 about holding 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a two-edged sword. Of course, this we doesn't have in Domitian and this coin, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. We don't have that either.
No.
There are differences, of course, there are differences. And here Jesus says that he has the keys of hell and death. I was thinking, if he in his right hand has 7 stars, where does he have the keys of hell and death? Does he have them also in the right hand or in the left hand? So Jesus' hand is is very, very crowded. But okay, of course, I shouldn't be joking about this. And then here, in his conclusion, he refers to this very in passing. The mystery of the 7 stars, which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 churches. So here comes, so to say, the key of 7 stars. They represent angels of the 7 churches. And what are the 7 stars of 7 churches? They could be one possible interpretation that the bishops. Because they cannot be, they are little angels. So they say the guardian angels of the churches. Perhaps both options are good. So 7 stars are things of the 7 churches, that is, literal angels, guardian angels of the churches, or bishops.
Yeah, indeed, I like that.
So there are differences, but also similarities. Both Jesus and the Son are represented as very powerful. There is no doubt of that. So. It's a great image, without doubt. With a different purpose, of course.
Yes.
So perhaps we should end there. Do you want to say something concluding?
No, I'm just thinking modern day man, he has to choose between one side of the coin. And that obviously leads to belief constantly being uninterrupted by lack of belief. So we have this oscillation between the two. Taking in the whole makes it a much more sturdy and stable foundation. But having the one will immediately lead to For a second you believe, the next you don't, as the coin turns. It brings a lot of hope to think about these things, indeed. It's an opening up to a wider understanding. Well, it was very good. Thank you very much, Kalle and Roland.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening, everyone. And well, have a very pleasant afternoon, day, morning.